Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Elevate Your Life podcast. We're doing podcast number 70 today, Cheryl.
Okay, that is like the coolest news ever.
Yeah,
7-0, the big 7-0.
Well, I just did my 100th Peloton ride. So I bought the balloons and really celebrated this accomplishment. So I don't know what we're going to do, Cheryl, for 100 podcasts, but we should start thinking of it now because I'm thinking about a fireworks display. I'm thinking about pyrotechnics, like whatever we need to make this a big deal. We should start planning now for that.
I'm thinking of a dance party, Paul, because that's what I love.
Listen,
a dance party.
Now we're talking.
Yes, I love a dance party.
We need to get some DJs in and
hey, I've got the best DJs.
Call Bruno Mars up and get him to come on with us.
Oh, come on. That would be like
special guest on our podcast today, Bruno Mars.
Amazing. That would be amazing.
But today is Thursday. Cheryl, we're talking about leadership. Elevate your leadership every single Thursday. Our leadership, our Elevate series, I should say. And today we're going to talk about the foundation of leadership, which, wow. So we're working out of a book called the Becoming or Developing the Leader Within You. And it's the second version of it. It's a newer version that John came out with a while back. And Cheryl, when I first saw the foundation of leadership, I'm like, okay, like I really didn't know what word he was going to use or what is the foundation per se of leadership, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And that's probably bad.
Well, yeah, it is, Paul. I know we're glad that you told us your little tell. Oh my goodness. No, I love it though. I love that the foundation of leadership is character.
Yeah.
Like I love that. I do.
Yeah.
I think it's I think it really is where it starts, right? And the combination of mental characteristics and behavior that distinguishes a person or a group.
Yeah. So that's the definition of character. Cheryl and I are all big on definitions.
Yeah.
One of the things,
and I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's a lot that goes into your character. And the first thing he talks about is trust in this chapter. And he makes us think of three people that you trust in your life. And I was like, there's Cheryl. And I have a tough time with trust, Cheryl. So you're the really, I guess I put my mom on there as a distant second, and my wife maybe. But it's hard, to trust people these days. It's, the people, just go out and you can't be, confidential and telling them something without them looking at you different or treating you different. And so to have friendships, people in your life that you have that trust with is a special thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and really it is the most important thing. And like it says, it's the foundation of being a leader, right? It's actually what you have to have if you want your team to have it. And so I think that's so important too, and let me just say, Paul, I think it's great that your family, you can have trust in your family, right? And your family can
well,
trust
I sort of can. I didn't have, But what I really love, Cheryl, is our conversations about your children. First of all, I love the fact that you have two children and I can spend time with them and live vicariously through you without having to have the children myself and go through what you're going through. But, what's kind of interesting, I think a learning lesson that we both have had recently is that it's not necessarily the first thing that comes out is, do you trust your children? But do they trust you? It's got to be both ways.
It does have, thank you. It does have to be both ways. And it does have to be that way. And trust is built, right? It's not just automatically, I trust this person. And when the trust is broken, I think both parties need to realize the trust is broken, and then we can begin to build that trust back up.
Yeah. But just to be honest with you, and we talked about this, before we started doing this podcast, is I didn't understand this completely, where of course people are going to trust me. What are they, an idiot? Like I'm completely trustworthy. Do I trust them was always the question in my mind. Again, more times than not, the answer is no, I don't trust them. But with your children, they have to say, I trust you, mom, because they need,
Right.
they come to you. And you said, listen, they can come to me with whatever, because they trust that you won't blow up with them. You won't go into freak out mode. You know, you're someone that they can come to and be open and honest with, Bob, this happened or that happened, whatever happened, and have that trust in you, which is probably even more important than the trust you have in them.
Yes. Yes, that's true. Because a strong relationship, I believe, is trust on both sides.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
I don't know if
did
you think in the past about how much do they trust me?
No, because I thought that was a given.
Right. Me too. Yeah. But John's whole thing in this chapter is about the leader has to gain the trust of the people, not the other way around, which I thought was just earth shattering for me.
Yeah.
Now, the thing of it is, so I was in a live seminar actually when he was doing this, and what was, people had, some really good friends and some family members on their list, and he asked, how many people here have a coworker on that list, someone that they work with? And like almost no hands went up. A few did, but not many at all. Where, when they were talking about trust with a family member or a friend, it was, 99% of the people raised their hands. So it's just, there's a big drop off when it comes to trusting coworkers. And this was the part that really hit me in the chest. So sometimes I hate John for the things he points out to me, but he asked, how many of your coworkers put your name on their list of 3? Because he wanted you to put 3 names down on the people that you trust.
All right.
So, of course, I'm sitting here praying that I hope Cheryl puts my name down as one of her 3, But in the rest of our team, we look at our rest of our team, how many of our followers use our names as one of the 3 people they trust.
Yeah.
So when you start looking at it that way, you just makes your mind really refocus on, hey, I got to build trust with people and get them to trust me, to buy into me, because they're not going to follow you or your vision at all until they buy into you and trust you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it also has to be it also has to be a big deal to you to want to trust your team. And I think we do want to do that, but it needs to be a big deal to us to have our team trust us.
Yeah. And as John says,
So,
trust is the environment where work relationships work the very best. So it's that trust environment going on where I trust you, you trust me. That makes the right environment for the business to work best.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where everyone flourishes, right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Stephen Covey wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. It's a leadership book. Highly recommend getting it. And it talks about, boy, the more trust you have in your culture at work, the faster things are going to go, the more progress you're going to make. But if there's a little bit of hesitation where the trust isn't 100% on both sides, then you're going to run into a huge slowdown in progress. So what are the 3 questions we have to ask ourselves, 3 questions followers ask when they look at us or look at leaders?
So the 3 questions: do they trust me? Can they trust me? And can I trust them? So really all of the things that we've just kind of discussed and talked a little bit about, all of those questions are super important.
I just never asked question 1 or 2. I just skipped to question 3.
No, I don't think I did that. I think it's really important that your team can trust you.
Yeah. And we talk about this, so we're involved in an industry, you and I, where, we do promote products, health products, and so it's easier to do that than people buying into you, so do they trust me? Like, and you ask yourself, can I really help this person elevate their life. Or your woman comes to you, Cheryl, and she's like, Cheryl, I want you to be my mentor. I really want to go from fine to fabulous. There's a moment inside of you, you're like, okay, they just put their trust in me. So now I have to produce.
Sure.
Like, I really need to help this woman go from fine to fabulous, or the trust is not going to be there.
Absolutely. Yep.
So John also talks about the character of the person, the character of a great teammate. So we'll go into character and the dimensions of character here in a moment. But it's the point we want to drive home here is that a leader initiates the trust, not the other way around. So if you with your team that you have out there, your number one thought has got to be, do they trust me? How do I build more trust with them in that? Because I want them to trust me. That's the most important part of this. And then just saying, listen, you might as well trust people, because if they disappoint you or do something out of line, then you just let them go. I mean, they're not on your team anymore. But I do this. I do give people a benefit of the doubt from get-go. Like my trust is always 100% in the person until they prove me wrong, not the other way around. Like other people go like, well, I don't trust them at all. They have to earn their trust with me. I'm like, man, that's not actually how I operate. I go 100%. But if you prove that I can't trust you or show something that the reason why I shouldn't trust you, then you're out. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
So trust speeds up when the longevity goes up of being trustworthy. So the longer you can be trustworthy and prove yourself, the speed of trust is, in the longevity of it's going to make you more trustworthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's how it is in every aspect of your life, right?
Yeah.
Even for yourself. I mean, do you trust yourself? That's another big one. I mean, we're not going to get into that right now.
Yeah, that's another podcast right there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Or two.
it is. Yeah, but it's one that I love because I think it's hard for other people to trust you if you can't even trust yourself.
Yeah. And that's an excellent point, because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this right now that are like, listen, not only do I not trust anybody and no one trusts me, I don't even trust myself. So
Yeah,
that's a whole other dimension of problems. But let's talk about, speaking of dimensions, what are the 4 dimensions of character, Cheryl?
yeah. The very first one is authenticity. Wow, be authentic, which, let me tell you, is such a buzzword these days.
Yeah.
Right? Just really being authentic.
Yeah. It's funny because back in the day there, to run a commercial on television, like there was that, I don't know, Jong Woo, whatever, I don't know, I forget what the guy's name is, but he would like rent a boat and like all these women around him and being like, if you want to be successful, you got to buy my program, and just going on and on and on. But he, none of this was true. He was just putting on a show.
Oh, right.
But people over the years can see this now, these fake people that are out there. And actually what's great about society now is that you can be authentic. You can come out and tell a story and be real about how bad things have, and then people love to hear that, and when you get out and I know even you, Cheryl, you were like a little bit hesitant, like my story's so bad. I don't want to go share my story. People are going to hate me. They're going to think less of me. Yeah. But the opposite happened. They thought more of you because, hey, I went through all of these bad things, but because of that, I was able to go from fine to fabulous.
Well, absolutely. And I think that when you can tell a story about a struggle you've had, then I think that more people can relate to you. Everyone's had struggles. Nobody's had a perfect life. Nobody will ever have a perfect life. Nobody's perfect. And so I think if you're able to, I think that creates trust when you're able to be authentic, because people relate to you so much more.
Yeah.
And are able to say, oh, hey, I've been through that too. And yes, it was hard. And, thank you so much for sharing that. And because really what it takes is number 4 to have number 1, but we will get to number 4 in a minute, which happens to be. Like,
I'm actually going to talk about number 3 right now. I'm not, without mentioning the word, but I love the analogy of these lines. So there's this, imagine a line on your left and a line on your right, on the floor. And the line on the left is success. So if you constantly go over that line and be like, I'm awesome, I'm successful, I'm always great, that's not being authentic, because that's not true. No one is great all the time and successful all the time. So people hate that I'm awesome, like you can't go around saying that all the time. But the opposite's also true. If you cross that line of failure, which is the line on your right, and you're just like, I suck, I can't do anything, I can't help you, like no one's going to follow you either. So you can't be outside the lines on either side. You got to be in the middle of those two lines where, hey, listen, I make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but I've also had a ton of success too. So you're like mentioning both sides of the line, staying in the middle. And that's when people buy into you. And that's when you're being authentic. Yeah, there's bad things that happen to me and there's good things. But when these bad things happen to me, I took them this way. I gave them this meaning and it helped me become this now, which is successful.
Right. Which, Paul, you actually, and when you can do that, you have number 2, which is self-management. Right. So it's exactly what Paul just described. Self-management, meaning that you know what your weaknesses are, you know what your strengths are, and you're working on your weaknesses and you are using your strengths to help other people. Right. That's really how I look at that.
Well, wait, what did you just say, Cheryl?
What? I said that you have to know your weaknesses and then you have to know your strengths.
We mean, it says, let's stick with the weaknesses for a hot moment here.
Well, why? I already said that you know your weaknesses and you're working on them.
Do something about them.
I just said you're working on them. And you know your strengths and you use your strengths to help others. We don't need to sit on.
I know we always had, so the biggest debate between Cheryl and I is about this whole weakness thing. Like, oh, weaknesses, well, I ignore them. That's not, I focus on my strengths. Like,
that's
no,
exactly
no,
right.
John teaches us that we have to know our weaknesses and spend time on
them. No, the number one book that I loved, I can't even remember the name of it, but it said, let's stop thinking about our weaknesses and focus on our strengths. That's my favorite book.
Well, he just said it in this chapter here that we need to know our weaknesses and work on them.
And now, Paul, I'm sure you're going to say, yes, Cheryl, when you only focus on your strengths, number 3 doesn't happen.
Because you have no humility, Cheryl.
So number 3 is humility. Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, that's true. Be humble.
What's the definition of humility?
Well, it's to show a modest estimate of one's own importance.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, you're really good at that, Cheryl. You're never, that's why people, seriously, all seriousness, people love you because you're mega successful, and a lot of people in your shoes, they don't talk to anybody, or, I'm above all of you, so the heck with all of you, but you're not like that at all. Like, if someone didn't know you're successful, they just think, she's just another woman, she's awesome. She's a great friend.
Most people don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, we kept it a great secret, but Cheryl's mega successful. So, but she has the humility, in her life that even though I have this much success, I still know that I have a lot to go and I have a lot of women to help go from fine to fabulous.
Absolutely.
And to help women go from fine to fabulous, Cheryl, it takes number 4.
To do all of those things, it does take this. And this, Paul, I have to say, is like one of my favorite words. It really, really is. And that is, you have to have courage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
not only do I love the word, but I love what he talks about. You gain courage from doing hard things.
The cookie jar. It's the cookie jar.
Yeah.
And we say you gain courage from doing hard things. You also gain confidence. You also gain self-respect. You also gain, all self-worth. You gain all of these things, I believe, through doing hard things. Yeah. So we need to we should be rejoicing with these hard things.
Yeah. It's been a big mind shift this year for me, following David Goggins and him talking about, I literally go out looking for hard things to do today. Because he grasped this to such a level where he understands you gain courage from doing hard things. So, well, if that's the case, let me go do a 50-mile run or 150-mile run or whatever crazy thing he decides to do today that is so hard. But and no one's fearless. That's my
favorite thing.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing, because that really is what courage means to me.
Yeah.
If you say you're fearless, that's a lie.
Of course.
There is fear. And believe me, I know a lot of people who have said a lot of times, I'm not scared of anything. Untrue. And the very definition, the very meaning that courage has for me is that you fear something and you do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right. That to me is what courage really is. It's understanding. Yes, I am fearful. Yes, I surely am. And guess what? That's okay, because everybody has some sort of fear at some point. And you know what? You do it anyway.
Right. I mean,
And
your
I love
mind
that.
is built to survive, to help you survive. So it is
Right.
going to constantly tell you, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. That could be dangerous. That's not that. What if that happens? So your mind is, I used to think that me and my mind were on the same team. And one of the big aha moments in my life was I realized that we're not on the same team. It is
No.
trying to keep me safe. It's telling me not to do things where, as a leader and as an entrepreneur, I want to go out and do different things. So it's understanding that we all have the fear, but it's doing it in the face of fear. That is the definition of courage.
Right. So we've
So,
got a
awesome.
few takeaways, Paul.
Yes. What are our takeaways to end up this podcast here?
Okay. So trust is foundational to your success as a leader. Okay. So
Yep,
we know that
absolutely.
because that's where it all starts. Yep. If you are bigger on the inside, over time, you will become bigger on the outside.
Yeah, it's so true. But so many people think, well, I got to become big on the outside. I need the world to see me as big. And they didn't work on the inside first. So if you really focus, and this is so true, Cheryl, that you got to become bigger on the inside first. That's how you become bigger on the outside.
Yeah. And the last one, which is my absolute favorite, character is who you are, and reputation is who people think you are.
Yeah. Wow.
And I love that.
Yeah, I do too. And one of the greatest things I've done recently is taking some people like yourself, and I actually wrote down, what would I like you to say about me behind my back? And, and you could take this for anybody, your parents or your children or whoever. If they were to say, oh, tell me about your mom, they would say this line. And you write that down now without telling them that, but then you start becoming the type of person that would have someone else actually say that, about you behind your back.
Right. That's a great idea, Paul. And the thing I like about this most is character is who we are. Reputation is who people think we are. And I think the difference when I read that is character is who we are. So it's who we think we are. It's us. It's who we think we are, which the way you think about yourself has everything to do with the way you live your life. Just like I always remember the hurt people, right? If a person is people who are out hurting other people, it's because they have been hurt or they're hurting inside. So it's so important for us to, remember that and work on, our character as far as how we see ourselves,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't have anything to do with the way people think we are,
Right.
because what's the real truth? And I think that that's so important.
It is. And once you build your character on the inside, your reputation is going to be impeccable.
Right.
You're going to have an awesome reputation because you inside worked on your character.
Yes. I love this, Paul. This was fun.
This is a good one. I wouldn't, if you said, Paul, what's the foundation of leadership? I wouldn't come up with the word character or trust. But now understanding all the things that we went over in today's podcast, even I grew a lot from this and understand now that this is absolutely the foundation is your character. And again, more importantly than you trusting people is getting other people to trust you. That's really the whole key to being a great leader.
Right. Living your life so other people trust you. Right. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yay. Awesome job, Cheryl. I love this podcast. I hope we got some value out of this and helped you elevate your life, elevate your leadership here. We're here every single Thursday. If you want the notes to this podcast, you just go into the description below, click on the link, and we will email you the notes of everything we just went over today.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Great. All right, everybody. Talk to you next week. Go ahead and elevate your life out there. Spend a week going from fine to fabulous.
There you go.